All right. Well, what's up, Lucas?
What's up? You missed a good weekend, man.
Dude, missed a good weekend up in Dallas. Missed out on, or not Dallas, San Antonio over at Reptilandia for Carpet Fest. But, you know,
It was a good time.
One of these days, you get to have any hands-on experiences with any of those animals out there?
No. So they were also open to the public as well.
Okay.
Up until 5 p.m. and and it started at 2, so I'd already done a couple rounds while the public was still kind of there, and just during that time, didn't get that opportunity like the year before, but it's definitely not going to be my last time there. And the Komodo dragon was chilling in the water the entire time that I was there. Didn't even see it up on the banks once. It was just chilling in the water. The Bolins were doing amazing. Ari's got something really special over there. It's a great place.
Yeah, it looks pretty wild. I need to see it in person sometime. How far from your front doors is Reptilandia?
If I'm being generous, like 50 minutes.
Okay, that's not too bad, but not as close as maybe I was expecting.
Yeah, 50 minutes. So it's in Johnson City. So for me, it's just getting on to one additional highway and just heading north completely straight. And it's a beautiful drive too. When you live in San Antonio, or at least on the outskirts, there's construction every which way you look. They finally finished the highway on heading north. And so it's just the last 30 minutes is beautiful hill country. As a matter of fact, James and I stopped by Andalusia. It's a Texas whiskey distillery, and I got to bottle my own whiskey. And I don't know if we'll be able to see it here, but if you look at who bottled it.
Oh, yeah, I can kind of see Lab Exotics on that.
Yeah, so they have you put the bottling date, the barrel number, the proof. So you get to have like your own little label down here. So that was a cool experience. We hopped to Andalusia before we got over there and just enjoyed some whiskey. And then got to Reptilandia.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and then I had to miss out on our, bi-weekly Zoom call. Yeah. But got some fun class out of it. I'm now the bald guy that can give you hair again. So that's interesting.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So you learned how to install
they're called hair systems. It's a tape down hair piece, basically, that'll last you about 6 to 9 months if you take care of it properly. So it's just a new way to keep me busy, right?
Are you ever going to learn like the tattooing, like give people fades?
You need to have like your own studio for that to keep it clean. So yeah, it sounds like a pain in the ass, honestly, and
way too time consuming.
And I don't think I would get that service done personally. I wouldn't get this one done either. I like myself bald, but yeah.
Right. That's good confidence. I like myself bald. Not a lot of bald people say that.
No, I do. I think I look a little wacky with hair now.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't imagine it, but I don't know. Maybe one of these thumbnails will Photoshop some hair on you.
Do your worst, Adler.
Right, do your worst. Before we jump into, I think this is our first species spotlight probably in like 2 months. I think it's been a while. Maybe the last one we did was with Megan Kelly, Anacondas.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, so it's been a while. Also, I didn't reach out to Megan recently and said I wanted a male anaconda, but probably some people did. But I will say this, getting to go to Carpet Fest was a great time. I got reconnected with a bunch of people I met for the first time last year. And that's where I also reconnected with Michael Pennell with Python and Pear Tree, and that is what our species spotlight is on today. For those of you that don't know, over the last 3 years, I mean, he's kept them longer, but over the last 3 years, he's been producing Progschais, which are the true dwarf Burmese Pythons. Nathan, you've heard me talk about them for a while. Duran's got a pair. There's some people that I'm close with that have animals, Dwarf Burms, and
well, I thought it was funny back in March, April when we were at the last, well, not the last, but the last Dallas show I was at. You were talking about them being there, and then I think you disappeared somewhere, left the show.
Yep.
And
never saw them.
Yep. And then I sent you pictures of
and that was Michael's table.
Yeah.
Yeah, never saw them. Even though that was probably like the number 2 animal I was most excited to see after Corey Martin's monitors. But
well,
no, was she there that year?
Yeah, that was.
She was. Yeah,
that was when she had all of the different colors on the table.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm excited to jump into this one, especially you and I starting off. Well, you're still in that direction. But just both of us starting off and just like what really connected us into the retics was the idea of more manageable size retics, right?
Yeah.
And when we talk about Burmese pythons, right, large constrictor, but there is a dwarf, a smaller version of them. And to be honest, I like their pattern even more. So I'm excited to jump in with Michael to talk about them, and we'll let him do his own introduction. But Michael's been breeding snakes for, if I had to guess, he'll answer this correctly if I get it wrong, probably 20, 25 years. He's been doing it for a long time. And my favorite thing that I love about him is he does it the right way, cares about the animal. And to be honest, he kind of flies under the radar, even though he's very, very well known in the Morelia world and everything. But I mean, he is someone with the work and the animals that he's produced, in my opinion, just should be I feel like people absolutely, if they don't know his name, need to, because he's part of a lot of amazing projects. So yeah. Let's actually throw out our Cold-Blooded Cafe sponsor. Nathan, you want to take us away with this?
Yeah. So if you guys are looking for the most fresh, and the best feeders you can possibly offer to your reptiles, you should be going over to coldbloodedcafe.com. We have a sponsor code for you guys for your first order, Reptile Lounge 20. It secures your guys' order with 20% off the full purchase price. Do you know if they're still doing that free shipping?
They are, if it's over $200.
Yep. So free shipping over $200. So make sure you make it worth your while. Get that free shipping, get 20% off your order, and just make sure you're feeding your animals the best feeders they can possibly get.
Yeah. Speaking of the Zoom call that you said you missed, it was funny. It was the day after Carpet Fest, and Michael Taylor, the one who hosts Carpet Fest, it was the first time he ever hopped on a Zoom call. So he was there. We probably had like 3 new, well, I wouldn't say new Patreon members, but new faces in our Patreon group that came to the Discord. It was a good time, but you could see Luke rolling his eyes in the back of his head as we're talking about Morelia with Michael. It was just a good time.
I hope you recorded it.
I did. So yeah, I mean, if you guys do want to join our Patreon, the link is right down there. And as low as $5 a month, every other week, we meet on Sundays, have a good chat. And our Discord is constantly popping. I know that we say that every week, but we mean it. Nate, you got anything else before we bring Michael in?
No, I'm ready to go.
All right, let's bring him on. Whether you've poured your heart and soul into your reptile business or you've just begun your business journey, AE Foundry has you covered with next level expertise in graphic design, motion graphics, videography, photography, and so much more. If you've been dying for a new logo for your reptile business, motion graphics for your current logo, a new website, or need assistance making your video podcast come to life, then listen carefully. AE Foundry's mission places storytelling at its core. AE Foundry believes that a distinctive story and background are the driving forces that set your brand apart. In today's market, consumers seek more than just products. They crave a connection built on trust with the brands they cherish. AE Foundry is committed to empowering small businesses and fostering authenticity that resonates with their consumers. Reach out to them and let them help you craft a visual narrative that helps establish a genuine and lasting connection with your audience. To contact AE Foundry, email them at aromero@aefoundry.com or on Instagram at aefoundry. When it comes to housing your retics, trust me, you're going to want an enclosure that will be just as strong and durable as your reticulated python. The Heartland Reptile enclosure is next level tough and will outlive you and your retic by several generations. Heartland Reptile enclosures are designed and manufactured out of powder-coated aluminum to provide the highest quality and longevity available in the reptile enclosure. What makes them even better is they are lighter than your PVC and plastic enclosures out there and are extremely tough. Stop playing around with plastic enclosures for your large constrictors and step up your enclosure game with the Heartland Reptile enclosure. To inquire about one of these enclosures, speak to Jordan himself at Heartland Reptiles on Instagram, Facebook, and on TikTok. Here on TRL, we preach about the importance of using hooks, feeding tongs, and other tools with your reticulated python all the time. Animal Equipment by Stoney not only has all the tools you need for any snake you keep, but they have the absolute best hooks on the market. What sets Animal Equipment by Stoney's hooks apart from the other guys is their polycarbonate hook ends that provide a warm feel that won't disturb or bother your retic, ensuring a positive interaction from the get-go. Since 2008, AE Stoney has been supplying zoos, herpetologists, and other animal professionals with their tools. It's time for you to step your hook game up and buy an AE Stoney hook. To learn more and purchase one of their amazing products, visit aestoney.com. Michael, what's going on?
Oh, pretty good, sir. Pretty good. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thanks for coming short notice. I saw you on Saturday. I messaged you yesterday. You're like, I can do Monday. I was like, great. This is beautiful.
Yes, sir.
If you don't mind, you'd, just kind of like go into who you are and your business and all that good stuff and just kind of what brought you into the reptile scene, all that.
Okay. All right. You were right on it. 25 years. I've been breeding for 25 years. I originally got into snakes. A friend of mine named Nelson Trent had a snake and went over to his house and got to messing with it. He had an iguana, monitor lizard, some other stuff, but it was really the snake that really got me. So wound up getting my own ball python. This was in the 90s, and got it from a jobber. I think it lasted about 4 days and died. Wound up going back and getting another snake and wound up getting an albino California king snake. So that's kind of how I got started.
Do you remember roughly how much that cost back in the 90s?
I think I probably paid $60 for that ball python.
Okay.
Yeah, there really wasn't any morphs really on that yet. That came about a little later. Then we started doing shows kind of started popping up. So we wound up doing a couple shows, went to one in one I really remember going to was one in Austin, and went to the show, then went out on 6th Street, and we were in our 20s, so doing a bunch of stupid stuff, drinking and carrying on, and went back to the show on Sunday and bought some more snakes, and came home, and it kind of started from there. So I just started kind of picking up different snakes, and he wound up moving on, went to the service. And him and I were roommates one time. And so I went on my own, had a little duplex, and then met a guy through the East Texas Herpetological Society that we had here in Tyler, Texas for a while. And he introduced me to Morelia. He had a retic that was like 20 foot long, nice custom cage in his house. He had a Burmese, he had a 13-foot scrub, and he had
jungle. This was what year roughly?
97. My oldest daughter was born in 98. So yeah, I want to say about 97 to 98.
Okay. That's cool. I mean, to have a scrub back then, pretty
Yeah.
special.
Yep. And carpets, jungles, spotted, savu. He had a couple of green trees. And so that was kind of my first experience messing with those. And I would just start to pick up some different snakes. And then something happened. He went through a divorce. And he's like, here's all these snakes. So luckily, the retic had already passed because I did not have room to house a 20-foot retic. But I did get a 16-foot Burmese,
Wow.
a 13-foot barnack scrub, coastals, jungles.
I'm sorry, that barnack
spotted.
scrub is more intimidating than that retic, man.
Yes.
At
yes,
least
it
in my
was.
mind.
Yes, it was. And then me trying to measure it, because back then it was really hard. You could try to get a picture, but it was like, well, how long is it? So you're trying to measure, and basically the whole time I've done snakes, it's been basically by myself. I've had a couple people help me here and there, but stuff like that, it was by myself. So I'm trying to measure a 13-foot scrub whose attitude was she was in a 4-foot Nia de Shea. And in order to even change her water, I would have to throw a rat in, let her wrap it, pull her out, put her in the tub, clean the cage, water it. By that time, she's already ate the rat. I throw another one in so she can wrap on it, put her back in the cage.
I did that with my wild caught calato when I first got her because she was a little testy and I was a new keeper. And people thought I was crazy for doing that, but that is the safest way to move an insane animal. You throw it a small meal, let it bite, wrap, throw it in a tub, do the same thing. Throw in another small one, let it bite, wrap, and then put it back in the cage when you finish.
Yep, because she was, and if you mess with it a little bit, they're very high-strung animals, so they don't do much of the nose rubbing, but they strike the glass. And so it kind of kept her from being so, spastic when it came to that. But it was a lot safer because I was not a big snake guy. Always kind of like the smaller ones. I've had red bloods and Borneos, several different colubrids, had some geckos and bearded dragons over the years, box turtles, Russian tortoises, leopard tortoises, redfoots, but wound up kind of sticking on snakes. I became a little bit more successful breeding snakes. I tried a bearded dragon. She got egg bound and died. But I got snake eggs. And I said, you know what? Maybe this is my calling, and it's snakes and not the lizards. And so I did my first, I'd bred a few years. But if you remember the older clutches, they had those Husbandry incubators. It was basically a chicken egg incubator.
Yep.
Little styrofoam with a little wafer thermostat on top. And like I said, my daughter was born in 98. That incubator was in the house, and I think she started messing with the thermostat.
With the dial.
And so, it really screwed up the egg. So I think 2 years in a row, I had produced spotteds and then something else, and they didn't hatch. And so in 2002, I maternally incubated a clutch of coastal carpet pythons and a clutch of Borneo shorttails. So got 2 really nice clutches. So my first shows was in 2003 when Bob Clark and Mike Wilbanks did the show in Dallas for 2 years before any RBC bought it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
And
I wasn't aware that was the origin of that show. That's kind of neat.
Yeah.
And so that means when we were talking earlier, Nathan, 2004 would have been the first year I seen Dwarf Burms.
Okay.
Because Bob had them on his table, and so it was before any RBC. And I remember seeing them for about 10 grand back then. And I liked them. It was out of my price range. And it wasn't till many years later. So I want to say about 12 years now is when I got mine. And it was, they started the law. I don't remember what it was called now, but where it was going to be illegal for Burms to cross state lines and retics, and you couldn't import them into the country. And so I was like, well, if I can get these Dwarf Burms now and then have them in the state of Texas, and then even if I can't sell but in the state of Texas, I'd be okay. There's a lot of people in Texas.
It's a big state.
If I lived in like Rhode Island, it wouldn't have made sense. I mean, I got
Right.
like 2 people to sell to, and that's it. So Texas was huge, and so I went ahead and snatched up a pair. And I think we were talking, Lucas, that was probably the last year Bob produced any.
Yeah. Yeah.
2004.
Oh, so those were at least captive bred.
Yes, they were captive bred. So the first ones I seen in 2004 was wild caughts. There was no captive bred yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think Bob, it was 2006 or something like that. Like it was, I mean, it was almost like he had maybe 1 or 2 clutches and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd have to get back with Jeff and find out exactly how many, Jeff Byers.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he was working for Bob at that time.
Yeah. We were talking about Jeff, how he bounced around, bunch of big names helping around.
Yeah, he worked for both him and Will Banks, and then went back, and then I think he opened his own pet store for a little while, and then currently he's working for Will Banks again.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, but yeah, I've known Jeff for, oh my gosh, since probably 2003, if not a little bit earlier.
Yeah, just a name that you recognize in the Retic community.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And talked with him about the Dwarf Burms for a little bit, and we're talking with him, and anybody knows Bob Clark, for as many years as he's done retics and he's bred and produced, is you get as much food into the animal as possible to get it as big as possible to get the most eggs as possible for a greater return. And having the Dwarf Burms, I've seen where they said you can get more eggs, but personally, the biggest clutch I had was 13, which is my first year. And on average, I'm seeing it's 10 to 13. And Jeff said the most they ever had was a 16 egg clutch.
Okay.
So I've heard of somebody having like 23, and it's skeptical to me. Not saying it's out of the realm. You always have those outliers, but it just seems like an awful large clutch for like an 8-foot snake.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got carpet pythons that are 8 feet, and they can lay 27, 28 eggs, but they also lay smaller eggs.
Right.
Not near as big as these Dwarf Burm eggs were. So,
man, even that 20, I mean, that's a big clutch for a carpet man.
Mm-hmm. I actually had one kind of I actually started with a trio that kind of started the M-pin line, but it was more of a pair. And I had an extra female, and she was big. She was about 10 foot. She dropped.
And this is the coastals, right?
Yes, this is coastal.
Yeah.
She dropped 43 slugs and 2 eggs.
Jeez.
Yeah. And I hatched those 2 eggs, and I still have one of those males today.
Nice.
Yep.
That was how long ago?
Man, that would have been 2004, 2003.
Awesome.
Yeah. Because the other girl laid was my first clutch was 2002.
So when we talk about the Progschais now, I guess like what was your, I mean, what was your kind of decision to jump into them? Working with Morelia and working with, some of the smaller Python species, what made you, and again, Progschai is Dwarf Burms, right? They are smaller, but still fairly large constrictor. What kind of, was it more the rarity aspect to them?
I would say that the rarity, the size played a lot of part in it. And I mean, I guess in a way it was kind of like Nick, Nick Mutton has been doing carpets and everything. He's known for that. But for Nick to get retics and African rocks outside of, this Python race to produce all these different Pythons was the fact that if these regulations kick in, at least I have some. Right. And then I can find somebody else in Washington State or wherever that has different retics, and we can still produce, even though I don't really want, this particular locale or whatever. So that was kind of along the lines with the Dwarf Burmese is the rarity, the fact that, they were kind of closing it down where you wouldn't be able to ship. And I'd seen Bob have some, and technically he would not have been able to come back into Texas with them. because he's from Oklahoma. So I was like, if I get them, then I'd be like really the only guy in Texas. And there was a few other people that had some, but didn't really have like pairs.
Right.
Because as I got them and started raising, you know, I'd have somebody contact me like, hey, I've got a male. You know, do you got a female? Will you sell me your female? Or, you know, I got this female. Will
No
you sell
shot.
me your male? Yeah, I got a lot of that. Especially it took me probably 2 years to kind of clue in exactly how to get them to set up to breed right. And, you know, I think I've got it. I think I got it. So I'd have people reach out and like, oh, well, you know, you didn't get a clutch. So do you want to sell that female now? You know, do you want to sell that male? I'm like, no, I want to give it another year. I'm giving it another year. And finally clipped it in and produced for the last 3 years. Although this year was a trash clutch. I think we talked about this a little bit at a carpet fest, but she went into a pre-lay shed. And so about 30 days later, I was expecting eggs. Didn't get eggs. She went back into another shed. And about 40 days after that second shed is when she laid her clutch of eggs.
That's crazy.
Yeah, all the eggs appeared healthy. They looked good. They incubated fine. But it was past due for them to hatch. So I've got an agreement with my wife. She doesn't like me, even though she doesn't mess with the snakes and whatever. She's like, you know, don't cut the eggs. But once I get the first pip, then I can cut the rest of the eggs. Because you never know. Sometimes I've had some that don't have an egg tooth.
Right.
You know, for whatever reason. So as long as I got one, I don't do that cutting early, you know, cutting videos. I mean, that's not me. But once that first pip, then I know that they're ready. And then I'll go ahead and kind of cut the rest so they can get out. And so I cut into these and they were kinked up. They were fully formed, but they were kinked, or one, the whole belly didn't close. It was just all messed up. And so I don't know if it's because she held them for so long. You know, you hear that about boas too. If they go past a certain gestation period,
right,
the babies die inside there. And
and that's a whole other nightmare with a boa.
Yeah. And so I don't know if that caused it. I have had a ball python do that in the past, but I don't remember the outcome. Like, you know, did the eggs actually go through and hatch and everything else? I don't remember. But I know on this one, you know, I got them. They look good. They still look good all the way for me cutting them, but they were just deformed. So
I would have been panicking if, you know, you expect an egg after 30 days after a shed and she hangs on to them and has another shed and then she still lays. Like, I mean, we were talking about this and just like, thank goodness she passed him.
We also want to thank VivTech Products for being an affiliate sponsor of the Retic Lounge. Stop by VivTech Products for the best UV spectrum lighting on the market that will enhance and improve your snake's overall well-being and health. Visit vivtechproducts.com and use the code ReticLounge23 today for 15% off. Again, visit vivtechproducts.com and use our affiliate code ReticLounge23 today for 15% off. Looking for the perfect accessories for your hatchlings or juvenile retics? Look no further than Heli Guy Serpents. Our sponsor, Chris Sexton, is coming in hot with an amazing 3D printer, creating top-notch perches and other caging accessories for your beloved pets. Enrich your retics environment with their high-quality products. Use our promo code TRL10 for a 10% discount on your purchase. Visit them today at heliguyserpents.com and start giving your pets the best. Heli Guy Serpents, the premier source for 3D printed caging accessories. Again, that's www.heliguyserpents.com and use our promo code TRL10 for 10% off all of your 3D printed accessories today.
Yeah, because I actually had a carpet python that had retained an egg and just getting ready to go to show. And I had another friend here, and then Paul Mobile was here as well. And then I had a vet. So I have a young lady I go to church with that is a vet as well. And so she came out because it was, you know, I said, there's a lot of stuff I can teach her through what we do in the snake world versus what she can teach me. She can get the drugs, you know, prescription stuff I need. if it comes up for something needing surgery, but there's stuff we do, where you can use a probe, pop an egg out. There's just different stuff we've been able to do that we've had to learn how to do over the years, because a lot of us don't have vets, in our area. So we were able to extract the egg from this coastal carpet. And I was like, well, let me look at this Burm. And Paul's like, man, just hold off, give it another week, because it was already past the 30 days after the second shed. And so I gave it another week, and she dropped those 8 eggs. So I was very relieved. Palpated her multiple times to make sure nothing was still in there.
That was the first thing I was thinking.
Yeah, make sure everything was out. And she was good. And back on feed, looking good. I was actually trying to get a picture of her today. I put my Texas Carpet Fest shirt back on, and I grabbed her up, and I was trying to take a picture of outside. And this was trying to do that and me holding the camera, and she just did not cooperate for nothing. I was like, well, this ain't working. So I'll just send you the other picture I have.
that works.
Yeah.
It's funny you talk about cutting eggs, right? I've noticed the last 2 clutches I had, they were my first 2 clutches of 2024. First one would pip, and so I cut the rest, right? And I noticed that a lot of animals stayed in the egg for like 5 days. So this clutch that I just hatched like 2 days ago, oh, hold on. And those 2 clutches that I had some, and they're retics, right? They eat, obviously. But a lot of them took a while to finally get established. And so I decided with this clutch, because it was a big clutch, it was 27 eggs. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to cut a single egg. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to let them be. And it was pretty outstanding. So the first one pipped less than 24 hours after I saw that first pip. Every single egg had pipped. And then the next day, the first 8 got out of the egg. And then the very next morning, within 24 hours of the first 8 coming out, the rest of the clutch left the egg. So within a 3-day period, it was all 27 pipped and came out of the egg on their own. So I'm interested to see if that impacts feeding at all, right? Like if any of them like don't want to, that was kind of my mindset of doing this. I was like, let me just let them do it, right? If they don't have an egg tooth, whatever. I mean, it's a big clutch, like I said. And the idea behind it was, I wonder if I have minimal interference in making them, because I had a feeling that some of the snakes that stayed in the egg after I cut them, it's because I was opening the box and removing them, and I was kind of just like bothering them. I was disturbing them, and they were nervous, anxious. It almost seems like they're using the egg as a hide.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense.
And then also just like the distribution of the temperatures, if you cut some too early and they're not just ready to absorb that yolk yet, you're exposing that yolk to oxygen and it's hardening it, right? So I just, the reason for it was to see if this clutch would be much easier to establish if they all came out on their own. So we'll see how it goes. Again, that's just how my brain works. There's probably zero, like, again, it's all going to be anecdotal. I'm going to continue to try after doing it with this clutch. I'll probably just let every other clutch just pip on their own and see how it goes.
I think that's what I like still to this day, is that we're still learning stuff.
Right.
Because I actually have had one that you went in and looked, and it was just cutting the egg from the inside, but it just never could cut through the egg.
Right. And that's
I cut it open and it had already drowned.
Yeah.
So, you do have that. So it's kind of but I see too many where, and I know a lot of people do it, and I'm not downing them. I mean, everybody's got their own thing, but I see too many people. It's like, oh, it's day 56. Let's cut the eggs open.
Yeah,
like,
just cut them.
You don't even know if they're ready to come out, really.
Right.
Because they know when they're ready. They know their time. And in that first one pips, then it kind of, I think they did a study where they communicate with the other eggs. It's just like turtles or tortoises, but the water turtles and stuff.
Yeah.
They communicate with the other eggs. So when one pips, they all pip so they can emerge from the nest at one time.
Right. Yeah,
because
it
they're gonna get
increases
picked off by
their
birds.
chances. Yeah, it
Yes.
increases their chances of, which is probably why you see them all clumped up, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So they do communicate a little bit like that, but it was just like, we're a snake keeper. We always feel like we got to help something. So, I just do a little bit of cut just to, I don't do a whole cut or cut the top off. It's just a little bit of a snip so that at least they can find a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Without cutting. Like I said, I did that one and you could see it with just red marks. And I was like, okay, this thing's been trying to cut. When I cut it open, it had already drowned.
And that's usually
trying forever.
In my opinion, that's a captivity ordeal because they're eating a different diet in that captivity, and I think it's over calcifying the eggs, right? And that could be very much diet related, and so they're unable to break that egg skin. Mm-hmm. That's why for me, I like to see dimpling on my eggs like that last couple weeks.
Yes.
That it's softening, they're absorbing everything, and I've had some clutches that don't dimple, and I'll cut those and. But yeah, I just, again, random experiment. I'm doing it. It literally means nothing, but just, I had a thought in the back of my mind. I was wondering if every one of these animals, if they pipped on their own, if they were going to be easier to establish. So I'm going to let them have the first shed. And then after that, I typically wait 2 weeks, and then offer their first meal, and we'll see how it goes.
That'll work.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Progschai a bit in regards to like your husbandry method, kind of go into caging, to bedding, to temperatures, to feeding regimen, like when they're younger to when they're older, kind of just for listeners that are like, oh damn, I didn't know Dwarf Burms existed. Now I want some. Just kind of give us your little, I guess your husbandry 101 sheet.
All right. The babies, a lot of times I can get them established on like small rat fuzzies. I've had a few that wound up being mice, and then I've had a couple that started on quail.
Okay.
But then I can, I try to give them a varied diet anyway, but it's about getting them kind of started. Have them set up in like 6-quart boxes, paper towel, little hide, because they are a little nervous babies at first until they get a little size.
A little nippy.
Yeah. But I mean, I've been doing carpets and stuff for a while too, and it seems like every little baby like that, they're just a little nippy for some reason, and they're just timid. So if you give them some security, give them a little hide, carpet you want to do like a perch, but then I just progressively let them grow to 12-quart, 28-quart tub. Currently keeping my female in I want to say it's a T10. It's the Animal Plastics with the sliding glass cage. It's a 4 foot by 2 foot by 18 inches tall.
Okay.
And the male is in a 41-quart tub. He probably could go in a T10 as well.
Yeah.
You had this huge cage, and they really utilize a third of it. They stretch out and then they curl up and they stay under about a third of it.
Yeah.
But I like doing Reptile just so I can give it a little bit of humidity. I spray about once a week just to raise the humidity just a little bit, let it dry off. I don't think they have to be too wet. Never really had a bad shed out of the Progschai. I think I have had the male during the winter a few times just because it's kind of dry with the heat.
It dries up, yeah.
And you can mist and mist all you want. And sometimes it just still has a bad shed. Temperatures, ambient is going to basically be whatever's in my room. Dead of summer could be as high as 80, maybe 82 if we're having a really hot summer here in Texas. Other than that, right now it's probably running between 77 and 78. Hot spot, using a radiant heat panel on the top of the cage for her, and hot spots about 88, maybe 89. When I go to cool them down for the winter, which I'll do probably in about another month, I'll knock the heat down to about 82.
Okay.
And the ambient will just be cooler. I think generally in this room, been running like 73 to 76, unless we get a really, really cold day, and it
Okay.
could be down to 71. But then she has the access to heat. Same thing with him. I've got underbelly heat in the 41 quart tub.
So they're real quick. Like before you're cooling them down, there are days where the room ambient's 82 and they have an 88 hotspot.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
But even like right now, because it has been cooler, my ambient's not going to be quite 82. That's probably just really hot summer.
Yeah, that's just probably like what those 2 or 3 weeks in the summer that it just gets up to like 105 outside.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how well that little AC is working and you got fans blowing, it stays warm. Feeding, my adults I'm feeding about every 10 to 14 days.
Okay.
Kind of cycle feeding her, getting her prepped. So I've been giving her she'll eat jumbo rats. I've been giving her mediums, and probably every 5 to 7 days.
Okay, so you drop down. So that's what a lot of chondro people I've heard do, and I'm sure other species too. But it's interesting because, in the retic world, what a lot of people will say is when you're using food as a means of cycling, you go up in prey size and you go up in frequency. Whereas I've seen a lot of people in other communities, they go down prey size, but they increase frequency a lot.
Yeah.
So they go from a jumbo rat down to a medium rat every 5 days?
Yeah, about every 5 to 7 days.
Okay.
And I'll do that for probably a month and a half. And then I'll kind of let her have that little 2 weeks to kind of digest everything before I kind of start dropping the temps down.
So you've been cycling her now, and then once the temps drop down, what are you generally doing?
That's where I'll drop the temps down as far as the cycle down. Right now, she's still at the 88 hotspot and just normal ambient. I actually think I've got a night drop on that cage, so hotspot probably goes down to like 84 at night.
Okay.
Because I think I'm dropping like 4 degrees. It doesn't necessarily make that much difference right now. She's just completely staying on the hot side. Because of the higher frequency of meals. So the digestion, she's just been staying on the hot side.
So let me ask you this. When it comes to feeding, I know that you mentioned jumbo rats. Are you ever giving them anything bigger than that? Like, do you ever give them like a meal and like it's a once a month meal?
No. I might have, but it's been a while. I think I got a hold of some guinea pigs one time. And I did.
But no, like bigger rabbits, anything like that.
Yeah. No, I haven't. Well, I would if I'd got some rabbits, but I got a hold of some guinea pigs. And
guinea pigs is like retic crack.
Yeah. Well, it's like, these were like 1.2 pound.
Okay.
Almost a pound and a half. So yeah, when I fed those, I fed her probably once for a month.
It's what my 1.5-year-old Sula's eating.
Yeah, I was gonna say that sounds kind of nice coming from 3 pound, 4 pound rabbits.
Right, and these are adults. But yeah, it's funny. My 1.5-year-old Sula's at 1.5 pound rabbits right now.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's but then again, with a lot of my retics, I like to do like she's eating, every 3 weeks, 3-4. So she gets a really, really big lump, and then I don't really feed her for another 3-4 weeks.
Oh, okay.
At least for me, it's cost efficient too, because rats are crazy expensive right now, and I know that rat suppliers they're not increasing prices to be jackasses. Just the cost of feeders and everything has gone up for them. But
yep.
I got a local source here of rabbits where, it's $2.50 a pound, so a pound and a half. for one really big meal that's lasting them 3 weeks, I'm spending only like $4.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, really efficient.
The last time I was getting was almost $5 a pound.
Yeah.
When I was having to buy rabbits before, but you got to find the right people.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, interesting. And what's great about all of this that I love hearing is you've been successful with them, and breeding them, which we kind of didn't even, we like just like passed over. But I swear there was going to be a point in time where these Progschais went extinct. Like I was so nervous that I would never live to see the day that someone produced them, because they went over a decade without being produced. I didn't know who had a pair. I didn't know if people were trying. I knew of people trying, but they weren't able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then fortunately in the last 3 years, we've had a couple people really step up and finally start to produce them. So I finally took like a big sigh of relief and was like, oh, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Well, and I
It
was
was
telling
good.
Michael earlier that like up until like 4 years ago, something like that. I think it was on one of Garrett's Patreon meetings or something like that. Was the first time I had learned about Progschai. So like, it wasn't something that was like widely talked about. I felt like, at least in the Retic community.
Right. And excuse my ignorance, Michael, do you know what their full scientific name is?
Python bivitatus progschai.
Okay.
They're subspecies of the Burmese.
Yeah, and the Burmese, what's the it's M, starts with an M. Molinoris. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Malures, yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to catch up to Nick Mutton over here with these scientific names. It's never going to happen, but
well, they keep changing it because Retic used to be one name and now they're complete. I don't even know what they call them now, but
it's just two other subspecies, the MR jampianus and the MR saputrii. And I mean, there should be more in my opinion, but there's some people in our Patreon that are like, nope, they shouldn't be. But yeah, so they went a very, very, very long time without breeding. I was telling you and the other day, like I talked to Brian Fontaine, and he was telling me about like trying to do pairings. It wasn't working out. And I had talked to a UK breeder of Progschai. And I was just talking to him. I said, hey, like, what are you doing that works? And he also was just making some pretty detailed posts. So I followed up with him and just kind of got his idea. And he keeps his animals in taller enclosures that have a larger gradient from top to bottom. And the main thing that he was talking about was just they need to be cooled down. Like they need to be cooled down. And the way that we typically have bred Burms here in the US is there's not that much of a cooling. And so obviously being a subspecies, you might think that there's a difference, but I was telling Brian, like, hey, try to really, really, really cool them down this year. Like get that cold, down. And he's like, yeah, that's what I heard too. And he was talking to the guy as well. So he went ahead and gave it a shot and produced some animals that year. And that was the year that you and what's the other individual's name? Yeah, Chris ended up producing them. So we brought them back to life. Well, you guys brought them back to life. So thank goodness.
Yep. I'm just glad to be, been able to produce them and still be working with them.
Right.
So I did keep a pair back through my first breeding, just so I would have a backup in case something happens to the adults. Hindsight, I wish I could have grabbed 2 pair from Bob back then. But it's always hindsight's 20/20, right? And the problem is they're still all so related, closely related. You only have a very small gene pool, and what I'm understanding is most either came in through Bob or through East Bay Vivarium. Okay. And was the two places they kind of come in from, and then you'd had a few breedings here and there, and I don't know if there was much of a, I had a guy that reached out to me, trying to find something. He was talking about Clark line, and what I'm like, they're just dwarf Burms. There's not really a line really on them yet, other than where you bought them from. There's not a difference in the look or anything like that. So I don't. To me, didn't really justify calling it a line. But I don't know if the stuff that he brought in had kind of bred with some other stuff from East Bay Vivarium. Actually, I think Chris did in Leavenworth. I think he actually has East Bay EBV animal bred to one from Bob Clark or an offspring from Bob's.
I'm trying to East Bay Bavarian sounds so.
It's the oldest reptile shop in America. It's
in
East
California.
Yeah, it's in the East Bay up by Oakland.
Okay.
Really cool reptile shop. I'm happy that I've been able to get out there, but I believe the location I went to was their second store.
Okay. Yeah, I knew they were from California. I for some reason the name kept ringing a bell.
Yeah.
I think that's where Brian got at least one of his animals from.
Okay.
Well, and I know Cusco used to talk about East Bay quite a bit, so that's probably where the name recognition's hitting for you, Lucas.
Yeah. So so if you don't mind, I know that we talked about it a little bit, but I think that this is like really, really important information. And then we're going to get into kind of establishing hatchlings, how you go about like the incubation method and temperatures and the amount of days.
I want to get into just like differences. I don't know how much you've worked with the other subspecies, just, your typical Burmese Python, but I want to kind of talk about the differences before we get too inside baseball with.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
Okay. Never have really worked with normal Burmese. Had a good friend, which we were talking about the other day, Jim Mason, Bebo, and he bred normal Burmese, and learned a lot from him, and enough so that like I can still look at a Burmese today and tell you if it's het for albino, het green, het granite, or combinations thereof, just from what he taught me. But that was really only messing around I did with Burmese, was kind of, go and visit with him and hang out with him for a little while. But looking at these Progschai, their pattern is really jacked up. Instead of kind of square, blotchy type pattern like you would find on the normal Burmese, they're broke down kind of like triangle, weird shape puzzle pieces and stuff down the back. The eye structure.
I'm gonna pull up his Instagram, Nate.
Oh yeah, I have it pulled up right here.
Yeah.
Let me get one on screen.
Eyes are a little more on top of the head. And that's one of my that's the girl on eggs this year.
Tiny,
but yeah,
clutch.
And they tend to have a little bit brighter contrast in color, I believe, too. So you're looking at an adult on eggs, it should be pretty dark. And most of the normal Burmese I've always seen had more of a dark interstitial color, whereas these have a lot brighter color.
I love the blushing inside the darker colors that you see. But man, that's a beautiful sight right there. And again, that's a 28 quart tub that she's laying in.
No, that's the smaller one.
Oh man,
it's bigger than a 12. I want to say.
So that right there is the 15? Pattern.
Yeah.
That pattern is just, you think about what a super dwarf retakes compared to a mainland, right? And you think about
it does break up the pattern there. I heard some similarities for sure. And then he talked about color, and I was like, maybe not so much there.
Right. But I mean, just the broken up pattern is, in my opinion, right. And this is just me. Like I've obsessed over these for a very long time, but, to me, it's a night and day difference. I mean, there's no, if you look at a normal Burmese pattern, you typically see some type of like symmetrical, like striping or banding that happens across the top of it. And it's not always perfect and pretty, but, when you're talking about a pure Progschai, it's just, they're puzzle pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really cool. And I think I find it interesting with the super dwarf stuff. You see more complex broken up pattern compared to the mainland stuff. And we're kind of seeing that same, like if we were to compare this to the retics, like this is like the Karampa pattern versus like the the mainland pattern. You know what I mean, Nathan?
Oh yeah.
So just funny how like both very small versions of the larger animals have a more broken up pattern.
I wonder if it's habitat being a little different on the islands compared to a mainland, and where they have to have it a little bit more broke up so that it blends in better than
Right.
would have been the bigger blotches on like a regular Burmese or the bigger retics.
It would make sense. I mean, you start to see, we were talking about it with Nick on one of our most recent episodes, and he was talking about how there's Timor pythons that a lot of people are drooling over about them being patternless, but you look at what they're doing to the environment and they're destroying things, so it makes more sense for them to be on rocks, and being patternless to kind of blend in
Blend in with it.
Exactly. So it's got to be something environmental. And if it's not environmental, then you can make the argument that that's a full species separation, not a subspecies.
Well, I'm waiting for that. I'm waiting for them to be able to do a little bit genetic study to see if that is a different species for sure.
Yeah.
I think it is, but they go down to the molecular level and stuff we can't see, and then they say yes or no.
If they say yes, I wonder what that would do for opening up importation.
Yeah, I think that would be, and then you can get a little bit of fresh blood in from the UK or
yeah,
because they've been pretty successful over there, still breeding for the last, I don't know, for a few years.
Yeah. I think they're probably at least here recently. It seems like they've just kind of been. Like when we had our drought period, they were still being able to produce them.
Mm-hmm.
Now we've talked a tiny bit about like the pattern, the eyes being a little bit different, color being a little bit different. Do you know anything in terms of, do they have any different temperaments than a Burmese, or are we still expecting a small version of the big puppy dogs we believe the Burms to be?
Once they get out of the baby stage, yeah, they're puppy dogs.
Okay.
Now,
Yeah.
I mean, at this age, and the one that's right there, they can be a little bit of a firecracker. They're definitely honed in on you. But if I can either reach in behind their head, pick them up, or like even use a hook to pull them out, that even that size, then once I get them in my hand, they've kind of calmed down. But it's just that reaching in the cage, they're
They'll light you
defensive.
up.
They're protecting themselves.
Yeah. But I've been doing that with the adults with my big carpet pythons and stuff like that. Is I always kind of use a hook to get their attention, rub across the head, top of their head, kind of kill their feeding instinct or whatever. And then you just know your animal, whether I can go ahead and by hand and pull them on out of the cage, or if I'm gonna have to hook them out, clean cage, and then most every time I can go in a bucket or whatever and pick them up by hand, hold them for a little while, and then put them back. But it's that going into the cage that they just, it's like, this is my territory. Don't mess with me.
And I'm even going to assume that the puppy dog is going to only get better. You look at a Burmese Python and how many generations in on Burms are we in the captive bred side versus these babies being F2s?
Yeah, for the most part, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, we still have like 2, 3, 4 gens until we can really see. I mean, maybe even the babies start to mellow out a bit, but I even know Burmese Python babies can still be a little nippy at first. So
that's what I've experienced. I mean, that was
me too.
the first large constrictor I was around. And when my buddy was growing up, his first Burm, it was a little testy at times, but as soon as she got some size on her, it was, anyone could go and handle that snake.
Right.
Yeah. And that's what I've noticed with these too, is they, once they get a little size on them, they just don't feel as threatened, but I've noticed that with carpets and Teresia, all that, it's just something about getting some size on them.
Right. I'm curious, Michael. You said hindsight's 50-50. You wish you would have gotten 2.2 from Bob back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
What are you stashing from these clutches? How many have you been holding back?
I've only held back one pair.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh man, you're brave.
Well, if I held back too many more, there wouldn't be none for sale. They got a small clutch size. And
Yeah.
I've had people that have kind of been on a waiting list
My name should be on
or-
there for this year, right?
years. Yes. There was one guy, and I don't know if he wants me to mention his name. He is in Texas, in Odessa. You guys might know him. He does retics too.
Yeah, I was thinking, you said Odessa, and in my mind, I'm already connecting the pieces.
And when I told him, I said, I finally produced them. I got some babies, shot him the price. He said, where'd I send the money? And yeah, it was the first pair right there. He got the first pair.
Yeah, no questions asked.
No questions asked. No, oh man, I think that's too much, or, and I've been getting a lot of that with these is, oh, I think that's too much or not worth that. And it's like, okay, well, I'll just hold on to them. They'll eventually sell. I mean, I know the price will come down as more gets produced, but for something that really hadn't been produced in this country for over 10 years and, people wanting them and the demand there.
That price is going to sit pretty. What are you releasing pairs at? 35?
7,000 for a pair.
Okay. 35 each.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things where, I see them sitting no less than 2,500 each, even in the next 5 to 7 years, just because you're still looking in 5 to 7 years, maybe only a handful of other people successfully producing them at small numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And now that we're finally producing them again, people are finally going to start catching wind. Like, again, like even there's people in our Patreon, right, where are just now learning that, like, wait, what? Dwarf Burms?
That same realization I had 4 years ago. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think the best is not even close to coming to fruition with these animals as far as like the market and the demand goes.
And I think too, even with this limited gene pool that there can be, and I'm a carpet guy too. So, we do a lot of selective breeding.
Right.
And, you saw a picture of the clutch that I hatched. You're like, yeah, see this one with the stripe? I would want to get 2 or 3 of those and see what I can do to accentuate the stripe in that clutch. And so there's still more, whether it's higher contrast, pattern, adding some stripe, you can get a lot of polygenic traits passed down just through selective breeding and then see what pops out.
Right. And what we do know so far, at least so a lot of studies aren't being done on snakes with breeding aspects and things like that. But again, what's cool about science I mean, you can make a lot of inferences based off of observations from other species, right? So when we're talking about, insular dwarfism or animals that are subspecies living off of smaller areas, smaller prey size, in the wild that they are already very, very related, and they're breeding with each other. And so as far as, what's the fancy term? Is it inbreeding degradation? No.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Inbreeding depression. Inbreeding depression. Yeah. As far as inbreeding depression goes, I think it's going to take so long for that to even happen with a species like Progschai. And in addition to that, if breeders are just being ethical, right, and they're not force feeding babies for 6 months to try to convince them to live, right, and they're when it comes to like line breeding, right, or having to just take related animals, it's a big responsibility on the breeder to do the ethical thing and not allow the weak to survive because of money, right?
Yeah.
At least when you start to get 3, 4, 5 generations of family breeding, right? But reptiles don't care. They're not. They're not humans. They're not staying away from cousins.
Yeah. They didn't check no ID card.
Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's really, really, really exciting stuff with this species coming out, and I think if anybody's breeding them now, like Michael kind of said, like you're selling them at that price and eventually they'll sell, right? It's because right now I still think it's a very niche, like not known market. And it only is going to take about a year and a half of you being on a handful of other podcasts for people to start to get wind of Progschais. And, I think that the demand's not even close to being where it's going to be.
Yeah. I think it'll hold for a little bit because it'll be probably 5 years, maybe 6 years before those that have got babies or actually get them up to size, and breed. Maybe have to kind of go through a little trial and error for a year or two before they kind of clue into, what works for them. Because I've noticed this with carpets, because I can tell a guy right now, hey, this is what works for me, this is what works here, but I'm in Texas. What works for here may not work in Tennessee, won't work in New York, may not work in Washington State for Nick, may not work in California. You can have some general guidelines, but sometimes just tweaking and kind of knowing your animals is going to change up. And so that's where it really comes into, is how well are you paying attention to your animals to read them? That, hey, this is not working, let me try something a little different. It's not always a book. We talked this weekend, and actually I don't think you might have already left, but we got to talking about a book, and for all us old school guys, it was called the Blue Bible. It was the Pythons and Boa book by Ross Marshek, and
I believe I have this book.
You do. It's a gentleman that just recently passed away.
Yeah, I have that book.
Yep.
The reproductive husbandry of pythons and boas, right?
Yep. And, there was so much information in that book. Now, a lot of it's outdated because, that book was written 30, 40 years ago. It's been around for a while, but there for a while, that was the only source we had. And so it gave general guidelines. But then as you start working with some of these species, say a Woma or something else, there were general guideline. You might find out, okay, well, this temperature range that they had, I really need to, change it up a little bit for it to work in my situation. I can't just go by what was written on a book by somebody, that lived in East Coast,
Yeah.
I've certainly noticed that with retics.
Do what, Nathan?
Yeah.
I've certainly noticed that with retics. I mean, I'll see Lucas breeding 2-3 months, even sometimes more, ahead of me, just because of weather patterns and different things out here in Utah. It really takes kind of these snowstorms to start kicking up, some of these winter storms to get the pythons going. But it's totally different.
You know what happened to me this year too is I missed some very, very early ovulations for snakes that ovulated typically later in the year. And even just in my garage, because I'm running strictly ambient in the lab. And what I'm noticing is my snakes are now adapting to my my mini splits control. So even though in the outside during the winter it's cold, when my mini split has the heat on, it's blowing hot air into the garage. The moment that I started kicking my AC back on, I had females start to cycle when I didn't think they were cycling. And it's because it's now blowing cold air. And even though the ambient on average is roughly the same during the day, they're responding to cold air being blown into the room instead of warm air.
I can see that.
So yeah, I mean, my wild-caught Kalatoa, she bred 4 years in a row. I did not want her to breed 4 years in a row. It took me the year that she finally took off. I had to, what I felt was starving her for her to not cycle. And she loves throwing Partho clutches. So if I don't put a male in there, she'll still lay. But she normally lays around October, November, and babies will hatch January, February. And all 4 of those years, she took a year off, and then the moment I put that AC back on, back in March, she started ramping up her feeding, going through her cycling, and that's her clutch that just hatched. She normally would be laying right now, and her baby's just hatched.
Okay.
So it's regional I think plays a very big role, but I'm even starting to notice with even just like in a microclimate in my garage, my females are taking the fall winter off and they're responding to me kicking on the AC in my garage. So it's kind of setting me back and like messing with my head a little bit.
Okay.
It's a weird thing.
Yeah, but it's an interesting observation that now that you kind of are able to notice, then it's like, okay, now I kind of know what I need to start watching for. If she's cycling to this, then
I can start snapping them all in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're talking about breeding and, it being different, people catching up and everything. And I was in the process of asking you about breeding, and Nathan had the great question to talk about just the differences between them. I'm curious, and I kind of, again, so we talked about Husbandry 101, right?
Yeah.
Let's see. We talked about caging, we talked about feeding, we talked about
temps.
Yeah, temps and how you're heating them up. I guess one more thing before we jump into breeding, as far as like behavior goes, I'm curious. From the retic world, we talk about food response being intense for retics, and we talk about reading behavior a lot. What is their behavior for the most part that you observe? I know you said they'll stretch out, but then they just kind of coil up and everything. But any other specific behaviors that are notable that you want to mention or talk about?
I would say it's probably a little biased because I really only have the one adult pair, but the male is still a little more high strung than the female. I don't know if that's a generalization or if that's just in the pair that I have. Generally, I can kind of reach in the cage. Like I said, I still kind of use a hook to get her attention, but generally I can kind of pull her out and she will kind of release and come on out of the cage. The male is still trying to get away. He is like, I'm just trying to I don't want to be messed with, leave me alone, that kind of thing. Whereas generally she doesn't mind being held once I can get her out of the cage.
When you say once I can get her out, are you talking, are they a little just like possessive and defensive when they're inside?
Well, being that I've done this or doing it by myself, I don't go into a snake cage barehanded.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen people do it with big Bebo would go in, take a 16-foot Burmese and open the cage and pat its head. I'm like, dude, no. I've seen too many accidents, and I actually seen him get wrapped up one time. So, no, I generally go in with a hook, get their attention, and then you kind of see by their body language, I can put the hook down, reach in, and pull them out of the cage, or if I'm going to have to kind of hook them out of the cage. My Olive, once I get her attention, I can just pull her straight out of the cage by hand, but I've got to get her attention because it's kind of that cage. I mean, they're, I guess for the most part, associate cage door opening with food.
Especially when you're running a one-man show and you have a few animals. It's not like you're going in there and you're picking your one animal to play with that day, right?
Yeah.
You're going in there and you're either cleaning or you're feeding, right?
Exactly. But yeah, it's I've noticed that at least with the female, she's got a really, really good temperament. He's just a little more flighty, but like I said, I don't know if it's just because I just have the pair. If that's a blanket generalization or, that it's biased because I only have the pair,
Right.
Other than that, so I've been using a cat litter box, and I flip it upside down, cut a hole out, and I use it for a hide. And most of the time they stay hidden up under that unless they want to get out and stretch.
Okay.
But yeah, like going in at night, like I said, I was going to try to take a picture for the show, and she was in hide. So I had to got her head poking out right there at the end, kind of in an ambush. And I come up to the cage and unlock the cage. She was thinking she might have been ready to eat. So I had to kind of use the hook, get her attention. And then once I started pulling her out, put her in a tub to take outside. And like I said, try to put her on me, and she just wasn't having it. She's like, I want to go back in the cage.
So just moving, when you say not having it, like, and same with the male, just moving around a lot, just kind of, I mean, do they, you know, piss all over you, or they just trying to, like, they don't want to stay still?
They don't want to stay still.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever been defecated on or pissed on, or they just like, let me get the hell out of here type deal. You know, that's kind of the way the male is. I don't want to be messed with. I don't want to be held. Just leave me alone. You know, let me stay in my cage, or let me go on with the female when it's time. Other than that, I don't want to be messed with.
Okay.
Like I said, female is normally fine. I was just going to try to like drape her across my shoulder so I get a picture of me and her to kind of show relative size. And she was just trying to get away. She didn't stay. She kept trying to go back in the tub, and I went back into the room to try to do it in front of the cage, and she just went straight back into the cage. I said, okay, no pictures today then. I got you.
Appreciate the effort.
Yeah, yeah.
Man. All right. Take us into breeding, if you don't mind breaking this down for us. Whether it's, and again, this is going to be a little different from region to region, but just like, what are you looking for on the environmental cues here in Texas, and what are you doing around the times? And then what do introductions look like? You know, how do introductions generally go? Let's just start there real quick.
Okay.
And then as far as like feeding, when you're doing temperature changes, things like that.
All right. Well, what I will do is, like I said, I've been kind of food cycling her down to medium rats, and I will probably give her maybe 2 more medium rats before I'm going to try to cycle them a little bit earlier this year, because I plan on doing my carpets that way. So we're going to see how that works. Because we have been getting a little bit of cool temps, and with the mini split, I think I can kind of maintain it. But I will give her about 2 weeks after her last meal to, you know, make sure everything's out of her system, so that when I drop the temps, even though the temps are not dropped that much, just kind of want to make sure everything's out. And so in addition to dropping the hot spot down from 88 to about 82, and then just the normal ambient temperature being cooler, I also drop the lights down to about 12 hours, just because of the work schedule I work. Kicks on at about 6 in the morning, and right now they go off at like 8:30 at night, but I'll probably kick them down to go off at about 6:30 at night. Just give that a little bit of cue, you know, light time, you know, temperature drop, and then
so light cycling, temperature dropping, and food. So you're doing the trifecta.
Yeah. Now I don't know if any of those work better than another,
right?
Or that it has to be all in conjunction. At this point with the dwarfs, I wasn't taking any chances, because, like you said, there really hasn't been any produced in a while, and it's not really a time to experiment.
Yeah, I'm throwing all the like tricks and trades, right? Like if like people like I'm doing all 3 too at this point.
Yeah. So I won't
even you saying I'm gonna try to run them a couple months earlier this year, in my stomach, I'm like, man, like hopefully he gets them to go.
Yeah, and I don't think it's, well, see, I normally shut them off around Thanksgiving. So for me, that's kind of been my time is Thanksgiving to Super Bowl.
Okay.
So, you know, it's generally like a 2.5 months, where I'll drop the temps right around Thanksgiving. So that means 2 weeks prior to that is when I would shut off food. And I'm really only doing it probably a week and a half earlier than I normally do.
Okay.
So
I can take a breath.
Yeah.
We're open. I'll breathe.
But that was kind of my thing is, you know, Thanksgiving to Super Bowl, and then around Super Bowls when I would kind of start warming the temps back up, give them, you know, a week at these, you know, warmer temps before I start offering food back. That goes for the carpets, goes for the Progschai. I'll start introducing the male. I give her at least 3 weeks just at the cooler temps by herself before I start introducing the male.
Okay.
And they are very secretive breeders from what I've noticed. So as small as this cat litter box is, and 8-foot animals, they will virtually both be hidden up under that box. And so I have to take the hook and slowly raise up because I don't want to interfere with anything. And, to see if I can see some breeding, because I always kind of document, and I got them, I pair them up this day to this day. If I notice copulation, I know, note it. If after 5 days I've seen nothing, I write no copulation. And then I just continue, back and forth. And I will continue putting him in until like after I've seen ovulation and I know for a fact she's gravid, because by that time he's on one side of the cage and she's on the other.
Yeah, it's a good sign that, if they're cuddling a bunch and then they separate, that's a good sign that something happened.
Yes.
Whether she reabsorbs or he got the job done.
Yeah, exactly. So then I'll do that back and forth, probably 5-7 days. I mean, I think I've left them in there for as much as 2 weeks together at a time, and separate them out for a couple of days, reintroduce, and just do that for most of the winter. Then when I start offering food, I have seen a little bit more activity with them than I have seen my carpets. Carpets generally get a little bit more once you start warming up and food starts coming back. You get a lot more breeding behavior.
Okay, cool.
I have seen a little bit more with the Progschai prior to warm up breeding, but everything kind of kicks in because once your food, you're like, okay, I've already got this. The dude's been hanging around. Maybe he's doing something. So let me get some food because I feel like I'm gonna be building follicles, and so the food kind of kicks. So I always start with a smaller meal back. Since they haven't eaten in a while, I'll start with like a medium rat. And then kind of work my way up. A lot of my carpets, I do like small rats on the first meal back.
Okay.
Just so that, everything goes and they can digest it because they have energy, but they don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so kind of get that small meal. And then after they've kind of defecated that out, then it's time to go ahead. Let's go up to a larger size and kind of get them back to going.
Okay. Now, when the deed is done, ovulation happens. You said it was about 30 days post that pre-lay shed where they lay?
Yeah, right at 30 days.
Okay. What do you incubate on?
I have actually changed my incubation down to 86.5.
Okay, cool.
Only because I've noticed at a cooler temperature, all the babies, regardless of whether it's carpets, enteresia, Progschai, they absorb more of their yolk if they stay in their egg a little longer.
Yeah, that's been a common theme.
Yeah, the ball python world, 56 days, we got to cut the eggs. Like mine can go 60.
Yeah, and I mean, and I dropped down. Healthy. Yeah, my incubation temps have dropped. I'm at averaging 86.5 to 87. And like I said, all of these picked on their own and they came out. I've looked inside every single one of those eggs. Haven't seen a single yolk sac. Every single one of those babies came out. Not a single umbilical cord hanging out of a baby. They absorbed absolutely everything. And what's weird is, this is a little off topic side note, but I see a lot of mainland retics that have these huge, massive yolk bellies. Not a single clutch at my lower temperatures do I see my animals have these really big yolk bellies. They look like a normal snake. They don't look like they ate a tennis ball right out of the egg.
Yeah.
Do you see that in the lower temps? Do your babies come out and they got this huge, like it looks like they've already had 2 meals, like back to back?
No, not really. They just seem, when I started dropping the temperatures, I noticed they came out. They just come out more lively. They come out fuller, and like you said, the yolk is absorbed. You don't really see any problem with the umbilical cord. Like the egg is like all the liquid, kind of like everything's out.
That's a beautiful freaking sight right there, man.
Yep.
Well, and a good representation. I mean, I don't see one that looks like they've had a huge meal, you know?
Yeah, like that. But Nathan, you know what look I'm talking about, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
I've
those
even seen it with some of my super dwarfs where the ones that absorb more yolk look like they've had like a good sized meal.
For some reason, I've never even like all of the yolk is absorbed, but I've never had that huge just like belly that I see in a lot of mainlands.
I don't know totally what you're referring to there, but I've definitely seen them to where they look like they've had a fresh meal.
Yeah, yeah, there's a couple there's definitely some that I've had. I'll show you what I'm talking about. And when you see it, you'll know. Like if you go on the Retic Nation, just type in like hatchling, like you'll or like fresh out the egg or something, you'll see some babies that literally the color is distorted and blown up big because their bellies literally it looks like they had a rabbit their first meal out of the egg. Ball pythons can look that way too.
Yeah. But see, this is kind of where I was saying about, we got so used to a book or information, and the internet can be a good thing and a bad thing because you can get anybody that can put information out and it can be bad and people go with it. But you get used to a book and it's like, okay, well, you always get to incubate at 88 degrees or 88.3. And, that's what I was incubating at for a long time. And it just looking, it was like, man, these babies just don't look like they absorb much. It's harder to get them started on, food. You got to do a little bit more work with them. But, by dropping the temps and letting them stay in the egg a little bit longer, it just seemed like they absorbed so much better. And you kind of get that same deal when you do MI versus AI. Maternally incubated clutches tend to hatch very healthy, absorb all their yolk, and just come out more stronger, seems like, than artificial. But we're humans, we like to control everything, and it's like, well, we think we can do better than you, and let's incubate these eggs, and or wanting to get them back on food.
Yeah, maternal incubation's my dream, especially with my locality retics. Once I expand and, I move and have a larger area to put the snakes in, some larger enclosures, not like fully bioactive or naturalistic, but my goal for my locality stuff is to just let them do it on their own.
I don't think it'll work. And what most people don't realize, I know one of the carpet guys did it years ago, and I have done it myself. When they're incubating their eggs, if they feel they need humidity on the eggs, they will get out of the nest box and run through the water bowl and come back and wrap the eggs and thermoregulate, increase humidity. But they will also eat while they're on eggs.
Right.
So I'll take a large carpet python that would eat large or jumbo rats, and I will feed it like a weanling rat so that it doesn't have a big bulge in it as it's trying to wrap eggs. But it will come up and grab that little frozen thawed rat and eat it, and then go back and coil up around them eggs. It'll still have half its body around the eggs, but it really won't strike, to try to jump and wrap it. They just realize that, here's food. We're tired. We're just going to take it very gently and eat it and go back and wrap the eggs.
Yeah, a lot of people have told me that as well, that maternal incubation, they'll offer a tiny little bite. And I'm sure they appreciate it. And at the end of the day, I'm sure in the wild, if a mom's wrapped around eggs and she's exhausted and you see a little, they see a little animal walk by, I bet they're going for it.
Yeah.
There's no way they don't. I mean, at that point, most animals are probably 3 to 5 months off of food. They see an easy prey source stumble across, they're probably going to get it.
Yeah, especially if it's one of this, you've always seen the bigger snakes take such a small meal, like they get it and just kind of fold their chin down. That was all they need to pin it. And just a small meal like that versus something I got to wrap my whole body around, because they can still be wrapped on eggs and then fold their chin around something just to squeeze it and then go ahead and eat it.
Right. So you're incubating at 86.5. They're taking, how long are the Progschais taking to hatch?
I'm going to say they're taking between 65 and 68 days.
Okay. Yeah. Do you have any idea off the top of your head how long normal Burms are taking?
Not right off the top of my head.
I'd have to go back and listen to our episode with Peach State Pythons.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, the dwarf, smaller subspecies of an animal take less days. And so wondering what the main difference is there. But is that how you're still currently running your egg box right there? Are you doing a light diffuser over wet perlite?
Yes. I've done both. So I don't use vermiculite anymore. So I'll either do like the light diffuser over wet perlite or light diffuser over water. And then I'll kind of prop that light diffuser up, kind of like pillars above the water, and just so it has the relative humidity in there. The main thing for putting the perlite in is just to keep the water from splashing.
Okay. Yeah, I generally with my eggs, I kind of do like a mix of perlite into water to where you know it's not soaking wet, but I sit the eggs typically directly on top. And the main reason why I do that is probably because I'm too lazy to cut a light diffuser and put it in the egg box. But
now you said that about the smaller species. My Antaresia normally hatch between 43 to 45 days.
Oh yeah, and I mean chondro eggs that are tiny are hatching, 48 to 52.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 55, but again, I think this is a conversation with Nick, and it makes sense. The smaller the snake, the less it can defend itself in the wild, and it's probably a survival mechanism to be able to get those babies to come out sooner because it's less time they have to sit around eggs and be a meal for a larger animal. A reticulated python in the wild, 90 to 100 days is observed in the wild for incubation. But when you're talking about a 14-foot apex predator around eggs, it can last 90 to 100 days around eggs because it's going to be able to defend itself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas a tiny little snake is going to, a bird just come and scoop them and the eggs.
Yeah, we see pictures. Actually, I saw some today. A couple of guys in Australia, and they will actually, in their hand, hold whatever children's python or whatever with its clutch of eggs in its hand. Like, got a clutch of eggs right here today. Like, I would have never put them in my hand like that, but showing just the size of them. So, if you could pick them up and put them in your hand like that, then they would very easily be for predation.
Exactly. So it makes sense, right? Smaller the animal, less incubation time, at least for above ground, like snakes, right? It's different with monitors that they're digging up their eggs. Smaller monitors like tree monitors, it's still taking like 120 years for them to hatch.
Yep. I just asked for it. Yeah.
So, all right, so you've incubated them. It's taking goldfish memory, 65 days.
Yeah.
They're hatching. I'm curious. Do you, after they hatch, are you putting them in their own bin right away? Are you allowing them to? So what I do with my retics is I move them into so there's the egg box and then there's an incubation box. So I'll keep another box in the incubator with soaking wet paper towel, some hides in there, and I throw all the babies into that box until they have their first shed. What do you do as they come out?
I have seen actually I saw a ball python guy do that. And so I was like, let me try that. I hadn't tried it with the Progschai. But I tried it with carpets, and it does not work well with carpets.
No.
At all. So I probably stick with what I've been doing. Generally, once they hatch like that, so like that pile right there, I will kind of get them out, rinse them off, and I will get my sex ratio find out what I've got, and then I will put them in 2 bins, one with the males, one with the females, and so probably like a 6-quart tub for both of them. Wait till they shed. When they shed, put them in their own tub, give them a couple days, and then I'll start food trials.
Okay. So, you're doing food trial. Wait, hold on. I might have missed that. You're giving them that first shed and then wait a couple days and then food trials, or are you doing it right out? Okay, cool.
No, right. Yeah, I give them a couple days.
Okay. With any of the Progschais, have you had issues with frozen thawed for first meals? No. That's a good sign.
For first meals, let me see.
Do you breed your own rodents?
I breed my own rats right now.
You're crazy. Okay. Episode over. You're crazy.
It's work, and
that's maybe a lot of freaking work, man.
Man, yeah.
Wait, did you say you're dabbling into mice?
I may be, yeah, shortly.
Oh man, are you gonna go African soft furs or?
Probably that too.
Oh my gosh!
Just
you're an old man.
Variety, you know.
No, I love the variety aspect, man, and one thing that I will say, and it's probably a privileged statement, being that I've done a decent job selling locality retics, but for me, it's well worth the crazy money. I cannot see myself just having the additional workload to breed rodents.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been doing it for.
Oh, speaking of Nate, we're gonna have a rodent. Years. We're gonna have a rodent breeder on next week who's a retic guy.
Okay,
we'll talk about it backstage.
Yeah, good deal.
Yeah, but yeah, I've probably been breeding rodents for about 20 years. So,
man, God bless you.
Yeah, once I got started into it, the guy I was buying my rodents from back then was going to retire, and so I had a storage building. I just expanded it and bought some caging and stuff from him and set up, and been breeding rats really ever since.
Okay.
So yeah, about 20 years.
All right, you got bit with the curse.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to be able to just like, hey, let me do it. But then there's times you need a live rodent, and sometimes they won't eat frozen thawed. So even right now, for me to get mice, because a lot of ball python babies got to have that live hopper mouse for their first meal. They won't eat frozen thawed. They won't look at a rat. I'll drive 60 miles round trip to go get probably $12 worth of mice.
Oh man, no. So I'm lucky. I don't know if either of you two have heard of Reptile's Pet Direct.
Mm-hmm.
They're 5 minutes from my house.
Oh, okay.
So I got them right down the road. I just go over and get live feeders if I need to. It's few and far in between. But so are you generally offering live for their first couple meals and then switching them over?
I will try frozen thawed on the first meal. Every once in a while, I mean, I have to go back and look at the numbers and really see who did actually took first on frozen thawed. But I do know that I have had a few that took frozen thawed off the jump. Some of them refused it. So then I've even tried, switch from rat fuzzies to mice frozen thawed. And then I'll go get a live rat fuzzy and try that. And like I said, I had one that refused all that, and it wound up being quail is what it started on.
Quail's great for first feeders. I always have a bag of day-old quail.
Mm-hmm.
Frozen, but fortunately for me, and I don't know, I feel like it's a Texas thing, but it was actually really easy for me to find local quail. So I can get button quails local. I can get normal quails local. They're all willing to freeze them. And what's cool is when you find a local source, like I can get day old quail for I can get a bag of 100 of them for $50. Or actually no, $40. No, I mean, so it's when you find the cool thing about San Antonio is it's so big, but on the outskirts there's a lot of country that people have farm animals. I even have a place nearby that breeds goats that guarantee you if I go over and introduce myself, if there's any stillborns, I can get a goat if I need to.
Yeah.
But so we talked about caging size and the grow up and everything. So I think that kind of wraps up as far as the breeding aspect goes. I'm going to be going back to this episode, taking notes and just kind of soaking it all in. Wondering how it'll work in my ambient setup, but for the most part, I do cool my garage down quite a bit during the winter, and I don't seem to have an issue with my retics not having a hot spot when they're gestating and they have eggs inside of them. It just takes a little bit longer. Sometimes they take about 40, 42 days instead of 32, 35 days to lay, but
yeah.
Interesting stuff, man.
Well, I mean,
Now-
if it gets to that point, you don't even have to go back. You just call me and I'll walk you through.
Yeah. No,
recap.
trust me. Yeah, no, I mean, that's, I say this to be kind of funny, but if I'm buying a pair of Progschai off of you, you better expect a text and a call.
Oh, yeah.
And we're talking throughout that whole process.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that time, man. I've been wanting these snakes for probably the better part of 5 to 7 years, and I haven't done I was building up my locality side of things, and have spent way too much money on chondros, and then you produced them last year, and I was like, man, I just spent like $5,000 on chondros. So I got money ready, set aside to get some Progschais this upcoming year if you hit it.
Yes, sir.
Now, I don't mean to bastardize this conversation all too much, and I'm sure I know the answer to all this, but are there any morphs floating around within Progschai, or is it something where you would have to breed back to a normal Burmese?
Bastard.
Yeah. No, there are no morphs in Progschai that we are aware of. If something pops out, it would be interesting. But no, I think that's where a lot of people are wanting to get, just like one-offs. They would either want just a female dwarf because they want to breed it into, the mainland, all the morphs. I mean, to get a small pied Burmese,
Oof.
that would be cool.
amazing.
It's something I won't
The
do,
purpose,
but-
at least to a point. So that's why I use that terminology getting into that question. So.
Yeah,
Yeah,
'cause, I
you
mean,
could pull-
they do it with retics,
Yeah.
for a while. So
Yeah, you could pull a Eric Lee and have a 93.75% Progschai pied, right?
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's eventually coming.
It's going to.
Someone's going to work that project, I'm sure, but yeah, I was just more curious on, if there's anything floating around in the UK scene. If there's, it doesn't seem like there's anything floating around here, but just had to ask.
Yeah, no, I haven't heard of anything. I haven't seen anything in the UK yet, as of just normal Progschai.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for those of you listening, Progschais are boring. Don't buy any. Leave them to the people that like locality stuff. No, but I think, speaking of taking into other berms, this is something I heard. I don't know if I know that you're not breeding larger berms or anything, but I have a good buddy of mine, Jeremy, lives in New Braunfels. He's building some cages. I got a couple cages from him as well. And, he was telling me, and we've had some conversations, and I've talked to a few others about this as well that have said the same thing, but it seems to be, from what I've heard, that when you take a first generation Progschai to Burm, the offspring generally stay very small, which is interesting, right? Because you think about genetic potential, kind of being a 50-50 ordeal, big to small. But it's just something I've heard. I don't know if you've heard the same thing.
I think we're talking about the same guy. And
I meant to ask you actually on Saturday if you talked to Jeremy.
Yeah. Robershaw?
Yep. Yeah. He keeps hot. He's got some half dwarf HDs.
Yeah, he told me about that. We talked at NERBC, and he said they're like 6 foot.
Yeah.
Like they're smaller than, the 8 foot regular dwarfs. I think we actually did touch on that a little bit. And then when you go back like an F2 off of that, then they're larger. Even if it's still to a dwarf, like take that half to a dwarf for 75%, you're still getting something that's larger than 8 foot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I really like how, the HD label on the Burms, like half dwarf. So they're an HD Burm. It kind of just sounds fancy. But yeah, no,
At least
interesting.
they're
I think
honestly represented, though.
yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, yeah. We were joking around about like, labeling like 2/3 HD Burms, like when you start to get more to the mainland side or whatever. But yeah, it is absolutely, I'm someone who's doing locality crosses, or I like knowing localities of things and different subspecies, things like that. So being as specific as possible for me is important.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I think when you start going down and trying to figure out that it's 93.5% of this and 12, that's statistic and that's the math. But if you look at any clutch, they're not really broke down like that.
Yeah.
You're going to have some that are larger than others. The genes don't just split 50-50.
Thank you. I've been trying to tell Retic people that for a long time, and they don't want to believe me.
Yeah. I mean, you can, and I see it in carpets a lot too. You take a 50-50 diamond jungle and then you breed back to like a diamond for 75% diamonds. They don't all have that same look. Some of them look a little bit more like a jungle, and some of them look more towards the diamond look. And then some are kind of an in-between that didn't change much from what the 50-50 looked like.
Right.
So you still get a mix. It's just the genes they don't just say, okay, here's the line. Your half goes this way, this half goes this way, and it's done.
Yeah.
They just split different, and you just get what you get. So
I mean this with all due respect, but just screw you to anyone who's taking jungles to diamonds. But no, I'm only joking. I do like the hybridization of a lot of species. Not my thing that I will do here. But it is very they look cool, but once you start to get crosses that look way too much like diamonds is where it gets very dangerous.
Yes, I agree. I actually know somebody was trying to pass off some crosses as pure diamonds.
I don't like it.
Not too long ago. So
we were talking about, Nathan, the Timor retic.
Yeah, I was just about to bring that up. The Timor retics, a lot of those are looking like super dwarfs, and then some of them look like they have a little bit of Timor influence, and the dangerous path of that breeding could take, once it passes an owner or two, it can very easily, without malice, get misrepresented. And
right. And when you're taking two different species, in my opinion, like if you're taking a Timor to a retic and you want to add morphs into the Timor side, you do that first generation crossing, right? But after that, you need to be taking those incomplete dominants over to a Timor, right? Like we have retic morphs, right? So there's no need to make a 75% retic, 25% Timor. Like don't do it. Just take it over more to the Timor side so that you can change the phenotypic expression of that morph because of the higher Timor influence. That's my opinion.
Well, if they're going to do that, just breed that to a burn ball and then just, really mess it all up.
And then after you get the Timor retic burn ball, then take it to our Cabrandro.
Yeah. I mean, the craziest one was the what they call it? It was a green tree to a ball python. I don't know how they got that one to work, but I actually seen some babies produced from that. That was
I see the chondro tail dipping down and the berm extending the tail up, right? Like locking in the air. That's funny stuff, man. Michael, it's been a pleasure having you on, dude.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Absolutely. Pleasure talking to you again, Nathan. Pleasure getting to see you again.
I know. I just kind of stopped by the table, snapped a few pictures. I should have said hey, but no. Next time I see you in Dallas, we'll definitely chat it up.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
I'll be picking up my Progschais.
Yeah, there you go.
Actually, damn it. No, March I'm not going to be able. That's when my daughter's due date is.
I was gonna say along with your new baby girl.
Yeah, probably
Yeah.
not going to be taking her. You know, she's March 19th, and so
What? No. March 19th.
no,
That's my birthday.
yeah, that's the due date for my daughter.
That's my birthday.
Okay, well, let's hope we keep that so that way I can get a discount on some Progschais.
Yeah, but they won't be ready in March, so
Okay, well, fair enough. Do you mind dropping your plugs where people can find you on social media? That way they can follow along.
Yeah, I don't really have a website as of yet, but Python and Pear Tree on Facebook. I'm also on Instagram. I believe it's Python Pear Tree on Instagram. And
Nathan, find one more pretty picture. Actually, no, don't find a pretty picture of a Progschai. Extend that first image right there of Carpet Fest so you see what you missed.
Okay.
yeah. And then you can
I don't
find
know
me
how.
at a lot of the herp shows here in Texas. Couple in Louisiana, be at a show in Kansas in December. But yeah, generally most stuff in Texas you'll see me at.
Awesome. We'll be talking soon, and we'll have to have you on to talk more about some M-Pen line carpet stuff and talk about your history with carpet. So we'll have you back on again.
Absolutely, be great. Look forward to it.
All right, have a good one, man, and we'll talk soon.
All right.
Oh, I kicked him off early. Sorry, Michael. Love you. I've been excited to do an episode of Progschai for a while.
Yeah. No, I'm that show just this year was the first time I got to see him in person. Gorgeous. Definitely stand out from any other Burm that I've seen. So size alone, how could I not be a little interested? Right. And I've always loved Burms. I mean, if it weren't for a Burmese Python, I wouldn't have gotten into probably snakes in general, or at least as fast as I did. And then, that same person put retics into my mind too. So I owe a lot to Burms.
I just want to say this off the cusp. The sweatshirt right now with the black shirt and everything, it's making the tattoo look really nice on your neck. It looks good right now.
Thanks, Lucas.
All right, guys. That is episode 116 in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we finally did another species spotlight, and we'll have some more next week. Nathan, I'm going to be telling you this. We're going to be having Aaron Lee Ingalls on.
Cool.
Yeah, so he actually messaged me, and he's like, we've been messaging back and forth about getting him on and talking about like breeding rodents and everything, and he's got a pretty big retic collection. But what he really wants to talk about is there is some really dangerous legislation going on in Colorado. He does a lot of local work of talking to local politicians, trying to really get the word out there. And there's some legislation right now that's not getting a lot of attention that is actually really going to negatively impact Colorado. He was telling me that if you have a 4-foot snake, they want it in a 4x4x4 enclosure. Yeah. Wild shit. So retics, imagine the type of enclosure you'll need for a retic.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm excited to. We're going to schedule something with him. He's a night owl anyway, so we'll be able to put him in the books. But and then after that,
I start thinking of why am I forgetting his first name? But Jungle Cages and all of the crocodile. Yeah, Mark with the crocodile monitors. Like, yeah.
Dude, we got to have him on to talk about dude.
And just the cages. But a lot of exciting stuff coming up on TRL. I should say the Retic Lounge now that we have the network. But if you want to join the Retic Lounge's Discord, get in on the chats, get in on the Zoom meetings, make sure you click the link below. Didn't say it early enough, but make sure you like, comment, subscribe on this video. It goes a long way in pushing it out to others. And Lucas, anything else that I'm missing right now?
No. Shout out to all of our Patreon members, and we will catch you on 117 next week.